In November of 2009, Florida man Paul Merhige was having a hearty Thanksgiving meal with his family. A total of 16 family members attended the gathering, but no one could have expected what chilling crimes Paul had in store. After the meal had ended and everyone had their fill, Paul pulled out a weapon and unloaded on his family, killing 4 relatives in the process. After the massacre had ended, he proclaimed, "I've waited 20 years to do this," and promptly fled the crime scene. Welcome to True Crime Stories. My name is Ty Knotts. If you love true crime documentaries and want to see more of them, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. It's totally free and helps us both out. Commonly known as the Thanksgiving Day Killer, Paul Michael Merhige had a relatively ordinary life leading up to what would become known as one of the most tragic and heartbreaking family murders in Florida state history. Paul Merhige was a man who maintained a somewhat low profile earlier in life. However, as he became an adult, his family began to fear that he may have some underlying issues that he never really spoke of. He'd never shown any signs of violence in his younger years, and it doesn't appear that he'd ever been arrested at any point either. Where these dark and sinister thoughts came from has never been fully understood, but it seems that Paul's anger and resentment towards his family had been growing for quite some time. According to court records and FBI files that have been shared throughout the years, during the investigation into Paul's crimes, they learned that he had a deep hatred towards his twin sisters, Carla and Lisa. His parents painted a chilling portrait of the man that Paul had become, but no one could have expected he would unleash his rage in such a disturbing and violent manner. No one except for his mother and sister, that is. We don't know the exact details surrounding why his mother, Carol, and his sister, Lisa, had these thoughts. However, in a police interview shortly after the attack, Carol revealed that she'd spoken with her daughter days before the Thanksgiving massacre, and they had both shared their fear that Paul may have been up to no good, and had devilish plans for the Thanksgiving gathering. According to a police report that was shared with the press, Carol spoke with her daughter on Thanksgiving Day and said, quote, "I hope he doesn't come and kill us tonight." Lisa responded seemingly unfazed and said, "Mom, it came to my mind, but don't say that to Dad because he would get upset that we had such ideas." Paul had once been a star athlete at his school and was even a standout student when he attended prep school in Miami. He'd shown no signs of violence, nor did he have any issues towards his family at this point in his life. However, as the years passed by, Paul began to show signs of aggression towards his sisters. Unfortunately, we don't know exactly how all of this began or what scary stories this entailed. But we know that one of his sisters was forced to get a restraining order against him several years before the tragic events of that Thanksgiving evening. In fact, FBI files even detail a time when Paul became so overwhelmed by his family's struggles that he attempted to take his own life, but was unsuccessful. Court records indicate that in the weeks leading up to his sinister crimes, local gun shops told several true horror stories about him visiting their place of business and purchasing various types of weapons from them. In one instance, he purchased a rifle and asked that it be outfitted with a scope. He claimed that it was going to be used for hunting, but his family feared that he likely had other things in mind. Why these fears weren't reported sooner, no one really knows, but it's likely that his family simply wanted the best for their loved one and felt that their fears were misguided. Whatever the case may be, in the weeks leading up to Thanksgiving, Paul had spent at least $2,000 on hunting equipment, but the disturbing backstory to this is that it wasn't animals he planned on hunting. Paul had been in contact with his parents several times on Thanksgiving week, reportedly asking for details about the meal that they'd be sharing. While Paul was never directly invited to the event, it was understood that he would most likely be attending. After all, literally every other member of the family would be there. While his parents assumed that he would show up, he never directly committed to it, and his parents never informed the hosts that he would be there. While the hosts were more than happy to welcome him into their home, they never could have guessed the unthinkable, scary stories that were about to take place in front of their very eyes. The entire Thanksgiving celebration went along without any issues. The family gathered and shared stories about what they'd been up to since the last time they'd been together, and everyone was as happy as could be. When Thanksgiving dinner rolled around, everyone gathered around the table and shared the annual meal without anyone feeling like anything was out of the ordinary. After the meal was done and everyone had had their fill, the family gathered around the piano in the living room to sing Christmas carols and welcome in the upcoming holiday season. While the family were all gathered around singing songs, Paul snuck out of the home and went to his car, which was parked just outside. He then returned to the home a moment later, and that's when every possible plan for this Thanksgiving gathering had gone wrong. Paul reportedly opened fire just moments after he re-entered the home. He started with his two twin sisters, Carla and Lisa. Both were just 33 years old, and both lost their lives instantly. Carla was a real estate agent, and Lisa was pregnant. Paul then turned his attention to their 76-year-old aunt, who had passed away at the scene of the crime, but not before her husband desperately tried to save her life. A fifth victim was also struck, though he managed to pull through. This was Patrick Knight, a lawyer from Miami and a future star witness in Paul's trial. Patrick told one of the most horrific true horror stories from that evening, detailing the chilling events of Paul's crimes to crime investigators. Patrick explained that after Paul had unloaded on the family, he left the living area and walked towards the bedrooms of the home. He entered the bedroom of 6-year-old Michaela Sittons, then returned to the living area. Just a few seconds later, he headed back toward her room again to ensure that the job was finished, then he fled the home entirely. After 5 weeks on the run, Paul was finally captured by police in January of 2010. He was taken to trial on 4 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of attempted murder. He accepted a plea deal from prosecutors and managed to only be given 7 life sentences in place of the death penalty. It seems that in the days after he was apprehended by police, Paul's crimes finally caught up with him. He had slowly begun to realize just how twisted and sinister his crimes really were. When speaking with police officers about his case, he seemed confused and shocked that he'd done such terrible things to his family. He said, quote, "It's impossible to reconcile with what happened to me. It's not even real. I'm not violent. I've never been violent. It's just unbelievable what I've done to everybody." He would later speak on the phone with his father and expressed remorse to a certain degree, with his father informing him that he'd essentially ruined the entire family's lives. He reportedly told his father that he'd hoped he'd be given an insanity verdict, saying, quote, "Hopefully after the case, hopefully I get sent to a hospital." Paul would ultimately not be sent to a hospital, nor does it appear that this was ever on the minds of prosecutors or the jury, though his defense team did do their best to seek an insanity verdict. In the end, there isn't much else to be said about the case. There's no happy ending, no silver lining, only more pain. But that's the video for today, you guys. If you want to see more true crime documentaries just like this one, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. You can even ring the notification bell to get updated about all my future videos. But my name is Ty Knotts. You guys have been lovely, and I'll catch you in the next video.